My name's Keith Harvey. I'm the International Trade and Events Officer with Dundee and Angus Chamber of Commerce. Just do a quick little introduction for our speakers. We've got James Buchan, the Managing Director of Zudu and the Vice President of Dundee and Angus Chamber of Commerce, who has a lot of experience working with China and so has done a lot of market research on what they have been, how China's companies have been adapting to the coronavirus, and so he can try and share some of that information with you today. We also have Stuart Hamilton, the International Business Trade Specialist from Scottish Chamber of Commerce, to give us a bit of an update on what the wider Chamber have been doing. So I'm just going to kind of do a brief introduction on what the Chamber has done so far, and then I'll pass you over to James so you can get the real meat of this kind of presentation. James, would you put on the next slide?
Sure.
So just a quick rundown of what the Chamber has done so far in this last week. Like all of you, I'm sure we're trying to adapt very quickly to the changing circumstances. So just want to briefly say all of the Chamber services are fully available other than in-person meetings, but we're trying to move everything digital now. So if you have any information you're wanting from us or any communication you want, just contact us as you would normally do. We all have access to all of our work phones. It's all being forwarded to us. All our emails, everything is still perfectly operational, so please just contact us. All of our team are now home working. We've been successfully doing that for a week, and no one has had any massive issues with that. So we are kind of trying to make sure everything's working normally. We are launching our webinar program throughout this week and starting into next week. We're trying to get it more regular. The goal is to have a regular coffee and cake drop-in, which is hosted by Sarah Young, our event manager, where you can kind of come in and discuss any issues that you're having and what you would really like to see, so we can continue to feed information onto the Scottish Government. And then on Thursday mornings, we're hoping to try and have these more special and specific topic aimed webinars, and we'll just kind of continue to do that, and we'll keep you updated on that. We are continuously trying to connect with our network and the wider network. We're always every day monitoring the government's information networks to make sure that you are all getting the most regular up-to-date information. As well as we're continuously looking for any community outreach programs that are happening. So we are currently advertising any jobs that are being advertised in the Dundee and Angus area, as well as any food delivery systems and services that are being implemented by restaurants and other kind of places like that to help the more vulnerable get food to their door. Just for an influencing side of thing, our CEO is in daily contact and raising business issues with the Scottish and UK governments and the Bank of England. We're hosting regular business support group calls with local authorities, Dundee and Angus and Perthshire Chambers, Business Gateway, Scottish Enterprise and Federation of Scottish Businesses, so we can get regular updates on business support, grants and access to our funding, and the partners we can hear issues are being raised with us, just so that you have all of that information. We've written to the banks with a series of asks on behalf of businesses as well, so we are constantly pushing to make sure all of your support that you're needing in this time is given to you. Our main next steps and our main messages that we're looking for is to help for the self-employed. We understand this is a critical area right now, and we're constantly pushing for it. Everything that we are, announcing is getting put out to you this week as far as possible, and we're constantly pushing for that. And the furlough scheme to be flexible and help business recover quickly. So we're just trying to make sure that their information is getting to you and that we can help you recover, so this slump is not going to be as bad. Ginger, we go to my next slide?
Yeah.
So just a brief little thing. We do have now a COVID-19 hub live on our website. And there's a variety of services that are available there for you, and pretty much anything we know goes on this hub if you're looking for information. So you can find all the links for different types of business advice and sources such as the HMRC, dedicated helpline. We have the crisis management and resilience section, which you can learn about how other countries have adapted. So any information that we get, such as what James will present today, we will be sharing that so that we can, constantly, there's a written record and you can see the different strategies that are put in place. As already mentioned, the recruitment information is available. Also, all information on lockdown that is put out by the government, and as that changes, will be updated on our website. Any health and travel advice that is put out by like a government official advice we are sharing on our website. Same for the UK advice, and all of the community support information is there with all the available resources. Now that I've got all that stuff out of the way, just remember, any comments after this presentation, send it into the Dundee and Angus Chamber so we can forward any information you need to the Scottish Government. And with that, I'll hand over to James to give you the full presentation for today. And after James, we'll begin to go and Stuart to talk about the Scottish Chamber networks.
Brilliant. Thanks, Keith. Yeah, just to mention, first of all, I know there's a couple of people are asking about the audio. I think if you can, there's an option to allow audio and on Zoom, so you should see it on your bottom panel. So that the audio seems to be working for most people, but if you're having that issue, that should resolve it. Okay.
Just one other quick thing, sorry, if you've got any questions for any of the speakers at the end of the day, just add it to the Q&A or the chat and I'll be monitoring that and we can get that to you later on.
Brilliant. So yeah, as some of you might know, we're a digital agency based in Dundee, but we've been involved with the China market for just over 3 years now. We work with quite a few companies, helping them kind of break into the Chinese market, and also working the other way as well with Chinese companies. What we felt would be really helpful, and we're trying to create quite a positive note with this presentation, is that China seems to have managed to overcome many of the issues that they've had. They obviously were the first country to experience the virus, we see it with quite a few of our customers really struggling at the moment with kind of business. Some industries are really suffering. We feel like there's a lot of learnings we can take from China in their experience, and obviously now it seems to be on the recovery straight at the moment for China. So hopefully this is a really valuable presentation for companies. Just to touch off, I guess, coronavirus or COVID-19, that's the number of cases globally at the moment, just as of this morning, actually. But when we first started writing this last week, it was about 200,000 cases. So yeah, no, it is increasing quite rapidly, but also in China more specifically, it's the new cases are significantly decreasing on a daily basis. So yeah, we're going to walk through first of all looking at COVID-19 and how that's affecting businesses in a particular relation to China, looking at the current situation in China, how technology has adapted, and obviously that's a trend that we see increasingly coming over to the Western markets, looking at the key opportunities and also some key guidance from some business leaders in China. So first of all, in relation to China, the real economic shock has affected businesses in three key areas. So first of all, the global supply chain. Obviously, that's been had quite big effects on electronic goods, mobile devices, for example, and automotive sectors as well. You've had stories of, I think it was Jaguar, Land Rover were kind of taking car parts over to the UK in suitcases and stuff like that. So so there's been a big impact on the supply chain. The consumer market as well in China crashed, and some luxury brands across the world like Burberry, Swatch, Hugo Boss, over 50% of their global sales now come from China. So that's had a huge impact on these international companies. Also, Chinese tourists have a high average spend. They're also the world's largest outbound tourism market, and obviously they haven't been traveling, so that's had a big impact on retail and tourism companies, and also work limitations. So really, that's hugely affected industries such as airlines, where people just can't work. But also, China's had to deal with, as we are at the moment, having to deal with managing staff working from home. There's been some technological innovations and really an up scaling of existing technology across industries. So key services industries, they were the most impacted, with restaurants, real estate, leisure shops, cinemas. If they've been essentially forced to close, which happened in China, has also happened over here. So current situation in China. So obviously now people are coming back to work, but we thought we would put a timeline in terms of how we got here, and where it's come from. So at the moment, most people across the country have returned to work. There are some areas where there's still a bit of a lockdown, but largely the economy is starting to come back online. Throughout March, that's when they resumed transport, and shops retail shops were resuming operation. Back in February, up until February the 10th, that's when the government restricted everyone in the country to go out. So that's a big task for a very large population of 1.4 billion people. And throughout February, they were also introducing measures similar to what we've seen with our government to help SMEs cope with the fact that they can't open their business. Also in education, colleges and universities were looking at applying online courses to have a policy of mutual credit recognition, taking all their courses online. So that's had a huge impact on the e-learning environment. And throughout February as well, Ministry of Commerce, they were encouraging companies to focus on medical supplies and daily necessities. Now there's actually a huge surplus of products in China, where these companies have shifted towards manufacturing these products. And it's worth keeping in mind for countries like ours, which are now in need of these protection products, that there is a surplus in China at the moment, and they're more than willing to help. And in January, that was really when it started. So Chinese New Year was the same day as Burns Supper for us this year, and that was really when the crisis started, and it really came to light at the end of January, and that's when they extended the national holiday. They were asking people to refunding railway tickets, asking people to stay where they are essentially, and to reduce the risk of cross-contamination. And they started really kind of a big initiative on trying to get companies to drug enterprises and the sport industries that create products and protective gear to start production, and also adapting quite quickly to what was going on, which was a lot easier in a command economy that becomes, those kind of decisions can be very rapid. So obviously this has all had quite an interesting impact on technology. Also in China, a huge opportunity for companies across the board has been innovation, and that's really led a big entrepreneurial spirit in China as a result of what's been going on. So walk through a few examples of this. So first of all, 5G thermal imaging and face recognition software. So this uses AI to automatically recognize, even behind the face mask, it recognizes who that individual is, and tracks their temperature across various different, and these are live in most public spaces, so it can screen crowds very effectively to see, track and monitor the health of those individuals. So it's got an accuracy rate of over 90% detection, and that's given rise to a whole bunch of big data that companies can utilize to help show people where the hotspots are. So that's in use in airports, subway stations, railway stations, shopping malls. Another big area of innovation was this remote consultation system, also supported by this interconnected 5G network. So this is where consultants could use AR glasses to remotely identify and help resolve issues. So them themselves weren't at risk, and they could do that across the whole country. A huge, something that did exist for quite a while, but it's been quite rapidly pushed into production, is touchscreen design. So we have holograms which can allow people to enter their floor of the lift that or the building that they're going to in a lift, or ATMs and so forth, so they don't actually have to touch it with their own hands, so it prevents the spread of germs. Smart urban logistics. So this is something that has been a growing trend for a few years, but it's really come to light during the outbreak. So companies like JD.com, they've got a very good fulfillment. That's why they're known in China for their fulfillment process, and they're a big competitor of Tmall and for e-commerce, and they do cross-border e-commerce. But ultimately, they have these little vehicles, these little robots that can map out a certain area, and they can help deliver essential products across an area which has a complete lockdown. Also, these have been around for a while as well in terms of the intelligent sorting robots. But obviously they've come into play recently because people can't be there to sort and fulfill products in logistics. So this is given rise to this to these robots that can help track, and they work as a swarm together, and they're able to shift logistics around the country. Cybersecurity, so we might have seen that trend recently over here as well, where there's phishing attacks and malicious links which are linked to coronavirus. So that was a problem in China as well, trying to trick people into thinking that it's the HMRC or people trying to help fight the virus, but in reality it's malicious links. So that's where key companies in China have been supporting the government and even medical equipment providers to try and prevent hackers getting into any of these either physical or software companies. E-learning. So e-learning's been a huge. It's had a huge boom in China. This is one app that allows you to take photos of questions, and it search. So as you take photos of questions, it will find you an answer. So you might write down on a piece of paper a question, and then that app will give you the answer to that question. So it's trying to create an intuitive way of taking the teacher out of the equation, so parents can work directly with their children. But this has been this app has gained a huge amount of popularity over the past couple of months. 10-cent meeting. So it's not always used for teaching, but in this case it's been really widely utilized by teachers across the board, so they can do digital e-learning, and also Ding Talk. So Ding Talk is similar to in a way to Zoom, and that allows you to conduct online classes, and it actually has a lot more functionality in it. So it allows you to even mark your homework. It does online Q&A. It allows you to track when people are working as well. So it's a whole productivity tool as well, that's been utilized by companies and education alike. And also TV learning. So the government has set up TV channels which are focused on learning. So while the kids were at home, they could access these public TV channels, and so the whole entire TV stations were devoted towards e-learning. So yeah, and we mentioned, over here we're using Zoom right now. So there's been a huge rise of, video conferencing software and telecommuting, essentially. And so over 60% of Chinese companies were communicating with this method during the lockdown, and using technologies like WeChat Work, Ding Talk, 10-cent meeting, and even Zoom. Zoom had a huge rise in, and you can even build your own platform. So, this has allowed you to then create your own programs of work and checklists. For example, universities, for Chinese students, even who are studying in the UK right now, if they're still connected with Chinese university, it allows them to set up a checklist so that they're taking their temperature, monitoring their temperature every single day, and they're giving advice to students who are studying abroad. VR property viewing. So this is in order to keep the real estate market alive, which is, that's a huge piece of the economy. A lot of property companies were moving to VR models where you could virtually look around properties. So this was very important to be able to close business, and people were continuing to buy properties just not without having actually visited them during the lockdown period. This was a hugely popular app, online doctor real-time report. So Dingjiang was a platform that was started providing real-time updates based on the virus. So looking at cases, looking at providing people with guidance on how to treat. But what they did was they created a model here that gave people information about the virus spreading. So it really helped people. But at the same time, there are other features, such as they had an online doctor feature, which always existed there in the platform. Became hugely popular as a result of that. Also, even online travel agencies were managing to adapt their business model to doing promotion, live streaming. They were attracting customers by pre-selling stuff for the future, and also lowering prices. Mafwengo, that's one of the largest OTAs in China, that they were kind of reporting real time on coronavirus, and also at the same time promoting their other products and pre-selling as well on the platform. So they were looking for new ways of managing their sales through the crisis. So obviously, as I mentioned before, big data was a big piece of of one of the technologies that really came to light, and these interconnected functions. So Baidu, similar to Google Maps, Baidu is the primary search engine for China. They actually had a heat map where you could track. So with the 5G interconnected network, they were looking at tracking people's temperatures, identifying who those people were. Obviously, that's created a huge amount of data and real-time reporting on exactly where the virus is active. So it's beyond any level that we have over here. So even Douyin or TikTok, as it's called over here, but it's a different platform in China behind firewall. They've kind of adapted their business models to be focused on education. So they create classrooms for students, and they do live streaming, and even major restaurant chains. This is an example here of a major restaurant chain. They did a concept of semi-finished dishes. So they were kind of pre-preparing this food ready to cook. So you could buy, even with the kind of garlic chopped up, pre-order this food and then cook it at home. So it aligned with what people were expecting in terms of their they want to cook it themselves because they're worried about the hygiene as well. But it was a hugely popular exercise for them. So many B2C offline models really had to adapt to move quite quickly to an online model. And this is an example of a restaurant chain that was just purely offline before the crisis. So yeah, what are the key opportunities? We've looked at some examples there of tech innovations. There's also been some opportunities for businesses to really adapt. So as I mentioned as well, 5G, that's enabled all these interconnected cities, interconnected supply chains, looking at traffic, emergency warnings, looking at where people can go, which wouldn't have been possible without the 5G network. So looking at tracking that back, linking that in with well-being, there's been a huge rise in social good platforms as well. So yeah, I mean, in terms of interconnecting that data, is essentially moving all that data, interconnecting it in terms of how each of the respective environments is working, linking all that together and putting it to use with technology that provides real benefits, such as tracking the virus, looking at logistical systems and where people are going. So yeah, it's really come to light. During the coronavirus, the outbreaks really accelerated the use of new technologies. So social communication, where that was maybe not utilized previously in some businesses in China, then it became increasingly important as a lot of businesses are realizing now. So getting online, using all your social channels, even interacting via likes of Zoom or Team, and it's really what's driven the entrepreneurship is really the private sector pushing some ideas out there, and that's really been key for China during the crisis. And also many businesses, you might have seen that trend over here as well more recently. Businesses are driven towards providing social good systems and platforms and helping each other out. So that's been a big driver of the innovation that's been led in China. So yeah, I mean, in terms of the apps that are fastest growing and have been most popular, mobile phone games, they had a huge surge in gaming applications, obviously because people are staying at home more, looking for things to do, video platforms, social media platforms, telecommuting software like the likes of Zoom, and also eCommerce has had a huge increase. That's what's really been maintaining the retail market during the virus. And this is just one example of Zoom. This is the amount of downloads just in China as the outbreak came to light, at the beginning of February. So it's been the app downloads have skyrocketed. So really, on this, the learnings that we can take from this are, you have to quickly adopt new business models. Some companies that are strictly offline models, and in China they've been forced to move to online models. Especially in sectors such as health, logistics, entertainment, retail, and education. These sectors have been forced to rethink their strategies and become more digitally aware. There's, and people have used social media to coordinate both their employees and make new connections with partners. So it's become increasingly important. There was a big underwear company in China that started engaging all its employees to start selling and promoting through WeChat, and they gamified it a little bit. So they had a ranking among all the employees competing against each other to get as much publicity as possible for the company and make sure that it could maintain sales through the crisis. Also, combining online and offline strategy. Obviously, some businesses are bricks and mortar premises. So you need to rapidly change your sales channel mix. In companies we're using KOLs. So this guy promotes lipstick for huge cosmetics brands, so that's where companies might not have considered that previously. It's forced them to move on to that model. And also, maintain your company sales through online promotions. Everything has become digital. So that's where tour groups and restaurants and hotels that are selling lower priced products through pre-sales, engaging through social media promotion and moving everything digital, and they're encouraging every single employee to turn their attention to sales, ultimately, which is what keeps them going. So really, we've done a lot of research on the kind of key takeaways from kind of business leaders in China, and a lot of this is coming from Jack Ma. So he's the founder of Alibaba, giving key advice to companies to try and survive through the crisis. So here, he's saying every employee should turn to sales, and also shifting your sales channel mix. So where employees before might be more operational, that's where they should really be focused on trying to sell. And second of all, rapidly innovate. You've seen some key innovations come out of China. That's where companies have quickly adapted to the fast changing environment to develop new products and react to what's going on in the rapidly changing environment. Radically cut costs. That's obviously happened in the UK, and the government's increased some measures to try and reduce the impact of that, which in probably on a lesser scale was prevalent in China. But yeah, I guess radically cutting costs, that's important, and also you can come out the back of that with a more profitable company if you manage to cut costs and maintain productivity and sales. Is going to become you're going to become a lot stronger as a result of it. Maintain a high production rate. Productivity is obviously important, and using tools like Zoom and Slack and Trello, those kind of tools can really help you maintain productivity while you're working remotely. Establish favorable interpersonal relations. So this is where you're working from home, but it doesn't stop you from building new connections, and that is very, very important. You want to come out of this with a strong pipeline, and also use this time to build strong relationships with existing partners and new connections. And also, a key thing to watch out for is to expect different recovery speeds for different sectors. So looking at, how that has adapted in China. There's certain sectors that have managed to come online more instantly, whereas others will take some time to recover. We're actually just doing a little program at the moment. It's a free digital health check. So if you go onto zudu.co.uk/health check, it's just a quick questionnaire that we're asking companies. We're just offering some free guidance on what is your digital presence, also how you're utilizing technology to help manage your remote workforce. So feel free to scan the QR code or go on the website, and we're more than happy to help. So that's it. I'll hand over to Stuart now, from the Scottish Chambers.
Right, thanks, James. Good morning, everyone. It's a bit strange actually to be talking to a group without being able to see you and get the reaction, but this is the way it's going to be, I think, for the near future. So we're going to have to make the best of it and grab the opportunities that are there. I've only got 10 minutes to speak to you, so I'm going to keep it very brief and very quick. I've got 3 slides, and I wanted to talk to you about the opportunities that exist for small and medium-sized businesses at the moment to trade internationally through the Scottish Chambers network. And this stems from a programme called, as you can see on screen, the International Trade Partnership 2, which follows, not surprisingly, on the original International Trade Partnership 1, which was run a couple of years ago. And this is part of the Scottish Government's Export Growth Plan, which is a £20 million fund to increase Scotland's GDP from exports from 20 to 25% over the next 2 years. This started a year ago and it was designed to run for 3 years, so 2 years left. And the Scottish Chamber network was given £2 million of that money to operate trade missions, inward and outward trade missions. And we started actually in earnest. The contract was signed in May last year. We really started in earnest probably about June or July, I would say. And the idea behind International Trade Partnership 2 is to run successful missions. They are open to businesses across Scotland. They're run by individual chambers, and Dundee and Angus has been very, very actively involved and successfully involved in this, as have many others like Edinburgh, Glasgow, Inverness, Ayrshire, Forth Valley, many, many others across Scotland. We have about 30 trade missions lined up for the next year, and I'm going to come back to that in a minute or two to explain how we're going to run these now. But essentially, it's aimed at SMEs who are looking to break into new markets abroad. Typically, the businesses will be operating with a turnover of less than 7.5 million, and they will not be Scottish Enterprise managed, not SE managed. So we're looking for that tier below the SE managed companies who are looking to export into new markets and who are keen to get out there and do business. The difference between the trade missions that Scottish Chamber Network will be running and the ones that are run by, say, by SDI, for example, is that ours are focused exclusively on organising B2B meetings. So the focus is not turning up at a showcase event. It is in getting your business to sit in front of another business who wants to do business with you and sign contracts. So we're very focused on results. Since we launched this, we've run 13 missions successfully, inward and outward, and another 30 to go. But could I just ask you to go into the next slide, please, James? Thanks. The markets that we're concentrating on are in alignment with the larger export growth plan. So the Scottish Government had identified 15 destinations that they feel are the main ones that they want to address. And there's only a handful of them there, but you can see that China's not, these are not in any particular order, by the way, but China is high up on the list. So the Scottish Government is very keen for us as a network across Scotland to be addressing the Chinese market and others, USA, Europe, and so on. I should say also that the programs, the trade missions that we're running, are open to all Scottish businesses that qualify, whether or not you're a chamber member. And even if Dundee and Angus is running an event, for example, it would be open to businesses throughout Scotland, whether or not they're actually in the Dundee and Angus region. So these top markets, the top 15 markets, there are another 11 ancillary markets behind that are considered to be attractive, maybe high growth. 70% of Scottish Chambers money is going to be spent on the top 15, so China's getting a good chunk of that. And already in the last year, we've welcomed some large delegations coming into Scotland. For example, the Sino-European Entrepreneurs Summit in June last year, which came to Edinburgh and was 95 key business officials and government officials visiting Scotland as part of a larger UK trip. So we made good contacts with them, and we've been keeping these contacts going. We also welcomed the CCPIT, the China Council for Promotion of International Trade, recently. They're based across China, but principally in Shandong, and they are very keen that we should maintain these relations and build on them. We had planned to go there very shortly, but again, I'll address in a minute how we're going to do that instead. We have really had ongoing relations inward visits from China on a regular basis over the last year, and if we move to the next slide, I can tell you where the network is planning to be going to or dealing with. Our focus on China as Scottish Chambers of Commerce is in Shandong, Yantai. Yantai has a population of 8 million people, so that's a large enough population for Scottish Chambers to be focusing on without looking at the wider Chinese marketplace. However, on top of that, Edinburgh has had a long relationship with Shenzhen and had, I think, 3 inward missions from Shenzhen last year, and a couple going out. One has gone out and a couple more due to go. Scottish Chambers is also actively involved with Inner Mongolia, and we've managed to land a £10 million contract for the building of a distillery there. And Glasgow Chamber of Commerce had a very, very successful trip to Shanghai at the end of last year, which is going to be followed up on. And it's all really quite exciting. What's coming out of these missions is that China is extremely keen to do business with Scotland. And the opportunity, I believe, that's arising at the moment from the current situation we're in is that we are now able to do this remotely. Whereas, for those of you that know China well, it's difficult sometimes to build relationships very quickly. You have to be seen to be going there. But if you can't go there, then clearly you've got the opportunity to do online meetings, and that will be acceptable. So what Scottish Chambers is doing at the moment, in fact, this meeting is taking place today, is that we're speaking with Scottish Government in order to divert some of the funding that was scheduled for next year towards virtual missions. So we're going to be looking at getting money to set up B2B meetings online in China and across the world, so that if you have an interest in a particular country, your local chamber, if it wants to be involved in the program, can set up a series of meetings with the businesses that you want to be in touch with, and our consultancy services will set these meetings up for you and manage them. Now, as an example of that, beginning of this week, Glasgow Chamber was due to go to Philadelphia. And up till about 2 weeks ago, we were still thinking that was on, but it was becoming obvious that, Edinburgh was planning to go to Philadelphia. And it was becoming clear that that might not happen. So about 2 weeks ago, we approached the government and asked if we could run this mission remotely and still keep the funding. So Edinburgh got the go-ahead to do that. And in fact, the mission went ahead on Monday night, early hours of Tuesday morning, as far as we were concerned, where all the business-to-business meetings that had been set up to take place actually did take place online, and it was hugely successful. So this, I believe, is the way ahead in the near future, because if we're not going to be able to go and visit these countries, we can at least be taking the opportunity to build these contacts now online, so that when the time comes to go, we can go. The actual benefit to this as well, of course, is for the companies involved themselves. They don't have any travel or accommodation costs, and the countries that they're dealing with are perfectly happy with the idea that we're doing this online. So in a nutshell, really, I suppose I just want to say that Scotland is still open for business. The Scottish Chamber Network is still open for business, for missions. Our contacts are still there. We're still building on them. They're still talking to us. They're keeping in touch with us through Zoom, WeChat, and all the other channels. And if you have an interest in exploring opportunities in any country, China or anywhere else, please speak to your local chamber, and we will see if we can together set up a successful mission for you. Okay.
Fantastic. Yeah, so I think we were going to kind of open up to, I guess, 10 minutes of about 10 minutes of time for questions. So feel free to fire any questions over.
We've already got one in our Q&A that is it fair to say that China/Asia is the place to do business in the short term, and will it remain more active than Europe for the next few months? Do you review to have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say certainly at the moment the consumer market is picking up in China, and there are. It certainly could be an opportunity in the short term. I guess people are looking to see right now what the new normal looks like for Western markets. And it's there's still, I think, a bit of time for Western markets to realise exactly what that looks like and how long that's going to take. But certainly in the short term, China is back to work. The market's picking up, and I believe in the short term it's likely to, and it is right now, more active than Europe. And so we realised what the new normal looks like, I guess, which isn't 100% clear for anyone right now, I don't think. But yeah.
Perfect. Stuart, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, no, not really, other than to say that we are, still in contact with China regularly through WeChat and online meetings, and they are wanting Scottish businesses to go over there when they can and engage. But in the meantime, they accept that it can be done online. So it's still very much. It's not business as usual, but it's exactly. But we are carrying on with business, just doing it in a slightly different way at the moment. So everything is still there, to be got.
So,
perfect. Just had another question. What measures could the hotel sector in Scotland put in place to help cope with the financial challenges? If you have any thoughts on that, and any examples from China?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, pulling out some examples, from the analysis that we've done and the feedback that we're hearing from China, certainly in the hotel sector, that they have been sort of pre-selling products, and that's been a huge trend in terms of just ensuring that your revenue keeps going, looking for, maybe people aren't going to stay now, but, that could be an opportunity for the future. And ultimately, if you go into hibernation mode for a few months, you're going to come out of it with, no pipeline at all. So it's really, now is the time, and that's learning from China, I think, is to get out there and start new initiatives and really develop new products and new campaigns to help be able to sell your products. Otherwise, it's going to last a whole lot longer than the crisis itself. That's certainly what we would say from our learnings from China. But it's not a one size fits all approach.
No, I mean, China is very resilient, and they seem they're ahead of the curve as far as we're concerned, and starting to return to some sort of sense of normality. And we have to plan for that as well, because this will not last forever. It might last for a while, but it's not going to last forever. And it at least gives us the opportunity to focus on where we want to go and where we want to be and how we're going to attack these markets when they open up properly for us to visit again. But in the meantime, if the whole world is in the same boat, so people are open to new ways of doing business now because it's affecting them the same way as it's affecting us.
Yeah, I think it's worth noting as well. I mean, I guess in China they didn't have the furlough worker situation that we have at the moment, and that's given companies a big opportunity in the UK to retain their staff, where otherwise they wouldn't be able to. So we're quite in a lucky situation, whereas in China they didn't have that luxury, and that's where they've been forced to, where all those either discontinue staff or turn all those staff to salespeople, and put them to use to help sell stuff for the business. So it's quite a different in social environment as well from the government initiatives that have been launched.
So probably got time for another couple of questions, and there's a few flying in now. This will be one we won't be able to give much of an answer for, but is what is the best guess by the panelists for when the lockdown will be lifted? I think for most of us, we don't know. We're going with everyone else. We're getting updated by the government the same as everyone else. Currently, it's in 3 weeks. Well, 3 weeks as of Monday, they're going to re-evaluate it. I don't know if you two have any extra information to add to that, but
Scottish Chambers Chief Exec has online meetings with the Scottish Government and the UK Government every morning. We're not in receipt of any special information, I have to say. We don't know any more than anybody else, but I think that if an opinion that seems to be common ground is that this is, and we've seen this in the news, is that the restrictions are likely to be relaxed and reimposed again, and relaxed and reimposed again. So who knows how long it's going to last first time round, but it's likely that this will come in waves, and that could go on for some time. We really don't have any inside information at all, I'm afraid, but we're looking at certainly weeks and months rather than days and weeks.
I think for looking at China itself, I couldn't the kind of measures that they have in place are completely different to the measures that we have in place over here. They're you look at the protective gear that their doctors and nurses are wearing. Everyone who enters the country from a high risk area is being contained or isolated for 2 weeks in hotels, fed and watered, and so it's a very rigorous approach that's led to them being able to overcome this. And I wouldn't say as of yet I've seen the same kind of approach in the UK. So yeah, that's quite an interesting aspect to look at.
So we're nearly out of time. So if the two, with James and Stuart, would you have a quick glance at the Q&A and see if there's any that you can spot that you could have a quick answer to? And if so, because we are running out of time.
quickly looking through. I think we could probably answer these afterwards, maybe.
Yeah.
A bit more
Absolutely.
to jot down some answers in writing.
Yeah, absolutely. We can get back certainly. On the some of the questions there. I mean, it's. I think certainly, hope from my side, there's been a good environment to learn, from some of the what's happened in China. Obviously, there's no answer to this. There's no one answer to this situation. But I feel like from our perspective, there could be opportunities to learn from China, and every market is different as well. It's going to react differently to the way that it works, and the governments work in every market, and the way the society works in every market. But yeah, hopefully everyone found it useful. We're also doing another webinar next Wednesday, or the 1st of April, with the China-Britain Council, which will be largely the same content, but that's spread out over an hour. So we'll be going into bits and a bit more detail. So feel free to join if you're interested.
Yeah, and what we'll do is we'll try and take all the questions that have been asked here, and when we're doing like a summary document on our website, on the DACC website, we'll try and put all these questions in with the answers from the panelists, just so you get so you don't feel like you're being ignored. And then hopefully everyone has found that a useful webinar. The Dundee and Angus Chamber of Commerce will be trying, as I said, do one every Thursday, with different topics, all probably relating to COVID-19 and how to adapt in these trying times. But yeah, thank you very much everyone for joining us today. Thank you very much to James and Stuart for presenting all that really useful information for us.
Fantastic. Yeah, thanks very much everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
All the best.
Bye.